Boxing Show on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. The Legends of Boxing Show is brought to you by the Retired Boxers Foundation and MyBookie.ag. I'm your host, Mike Goodpaster. Right now I want to welcome in my co-host, wrote Intimate Warfare with Dennis Taylor about the Gotti Ward trilogy. Help me welcome to the show, John Raspanti. How you doing, John?
Doing great, Mike. How you doing? How you doing there, Big George?
Life is good, thank you.
Good.
All right, and of course today we have former two-time heavyweight champion of the world, 1968 Olympic gold medalist, George Foreman. How you doing, John, or George?
Life is really good, thank you.
All right, so let's just start off from the beginning. I know you grew up in the Fifth Ward in Houston. What was your life growing up like?
Well, I can say it was rough. I can say it was difficult, but it was pretty much typical of everybody in the area. We were, of course, from working parents, and I ended up with one parent, so I was a good boy as long as my mother could see me, but if I was out of reach, out of sight, I turned into be a terrible character like everyone else in the neighborhood.
Yeah, you called yourself a thug in a story I read somewhere, George, and so that's true, or was it just basically about survival as well?
No, it wasn't really survival. I think growing up, there were two sides of the street you could walk on. Those children of us who really had ambition, who really wanted to study. Some even went to college, became teachers, lawyers, and some like me who decided, you know what, I don't see that side. I can't see any good in it. I wasn't very good at school, so I pursued nothingness, and that's what you call yourself, pretty much a thug.
So why did you join the Job Corps in 1965?
It didn't occur to me until later on in life. One night, I used to sit around my parents, especially my mother, who had been sick a lot. She had about five or six other sisters, and they'd chat. And all the time, they'd always talk about how proud they were that they called their dad Papa. Papa said Papa never had a thief in the family, and none of his kids ever gone to jail. Whenever they say that, they said it with such pride. And I just listened because, it didn't mean anything to me. But one night I was out mugging some people, and the police almost got me. I crawled under the house to hide from the cops, afraid the dogs were going to get me. I hid, covered myself in mud so the dogs wouldn't sniff me out. I thought they would, like bloodhounds. And for the first time, I realized I was a thug, that I was a thief. And I didn't really understand that until that moment. I said, if I ever get from under this house and not go to jail, I was going to do something with my life. The Job Corps, I heard a commercial. Jimmy Brown and Johnny Unitas, ex-football players, said, if you're looking for a second chance, you can do this. Join the Job Corps. That's a long story, but that's why the Job Corps.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Tell me about boxing trainer Doc Brodus, right? He was the one who encouraged you to box. Did he know about your past, or did he see something in you that he thought, you could fight as a pro or as amateur or pro?
Well, in the Job Corps program, they had one. The original Job Corps Job Corps was in Oregon, Grants Pass, Oregon. And we learned how to do construction work, and I learned to read and get my booking together and educational minded. But if you wanted to go further, you could graduate to these urban centers. And once there was some kids, we were all listening to Muhammad Ali fight Floyd Patterson, about 65. 65,
right.
Yeah, on the radio. And I was a bully around there, picking on kids. And one kid looked at me. We were just sitting in the day room listening. He said, George, you think you're so tough. Why don't you become a boxer if you're so tough? And I took that personal. I said, I'll show you. I'm going to become a boxer. Didn't even know what a boxer was. I love playing football. But and I read in the Corpsman Call newspaper they sent out every month about a boxing team in Pleasanton, California. Doc Brodus was the coach. So I went to Pleasanton, California, because I told those guys I was going to be a boxer. When I got there, I saw the guy walk down, a little guy, tough-looking guy. He had these little guys with him that looked tough. I asked, who is that? They said, that's the boxing coach. And I said, really? And I ran up to him. I said, hey, I want to be a boxer. And he looked at me and said, well, you're big enough and you're ugly enough. Come down to the gym. I never heard anybody talk to me like that. And I went down to the gym, and after about a week of working out, put me in the boxing ring. I thought I could beat anybody in the world. But I was so embarrassed. Fell down, slipped down. The guy jabbed me. I didn't know what that was about. Everybody laughed with me because it was an exhibition in front of the center. I said, I'll never do this again. And so I hid. And Doc Broder saw me walking down the street one day. He said, hey, I thought you wanted to be a boxer. What, are you scared? And I said, no, I'm not afraid. I just don't have any boxing shoes. I was looking for any lie. And he told me to sit down on the ground. He went to buy me and came back with a pair of boxing shoes and gave them to me. He said, I want to see you back at the gym. I said, oh, no. And so that's what it is. He saw something in me I surely didn't see in myself. He told me if I stopped fighting on the street corners and acting like an idiot, I could become an Olympic gold medalist.
And in 1968, you actually got that opportunity. I mean, what was it like to go from your upbringing in the Fifth Ward in Houston to all of a sudden you're on a worldwide stage in Mexico fighting for a gold medal for your country?
Now, just think now, I had my first little exhibition bout in February of 66. October of 1968, I was standing on the platform receiving a gold medal. It was an impossible dream. I didn't know.
Yeah.
He said I could win a gold medal. Doc told me about stick and move. That's about all he ever told me, stick and move. He told me I could hit. And winning the gold medal was actually my 25th amateur boxing match total. 4 of those were in the Olympics itself. 4 was in the Olympic trials. 3 was the AAU to qualify for the Olympics, and 2 were actually the regional Golden Gloves. So that's how much experience I had. So this for me was like impossible. This can't be happening to me. 1 year I'm hiding under the house from the police, trying to cover myself from head to toe with slop, looked like a sewage pipe that bursted under the house, so dogs wouldn't find me. And the next time I'm standing on the platform listening to the national anthem, and I haven't woken up from that yet.
Yeah, that's amazing. What a story. Now, you turned professional in 69, George, and you blew through 37 opponents and you scored 34 big knockouts. Is there any fight from that period, those first 37 opponents, that pops into your mind as being the toughest of your first 37 fights?
Well, I wanted to stay an amateur because I didn't have any experience. Only 25 boxing matches. And I told Dick Sadler, who was my professional boxing trainer, he told me, all the guys were offering me money, and I didn't accept these money there. We'll pay you so much a week, and you can just become boxing. But the Job Corps had taught me something about being a real professional, not to take anything from anyone, that kind of thing. So Dick Sadler said, I'm going to teach you how to box. So he would take me all over the country fighting until I get some experience. But I kept knocking everybody out in 1 or 2 rounds. 1 round, 2 rounds, sometimes 3 rounds. Very seldom 3 rounds. So I had so many knockouts, I didn't get a lot of experience. But he kept matching me again. And one guy I was fighting in Seattle, Washington. I think his name was Carroll. And in those days, we didn't have ESPN, so no one saw your ability. You'd read in the paper about someone was coming to town, and these promoters would tell a guy, George is nothing. He's got money behind him. He's just he's inexperienced. You knock him out, the money will be behind you. So these guys would always run out and try to get me, and I'd get a knockout pretty easy. They didn't know me. We have film now. But one time in Seattle, this guy looked like he was angry, why is he staring at me like he wanted to kill me, I thought.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I got mad at him for staring at me like the referee had to hold him back. When the bell rang, he came out there, and when I swung so hard, I missed him by a foot. And he felt the wind goes by, and he started screaming. He started squeezing my back. He said, man, someone lied. They said he couldn't hit. The next time I swung when the referee made us break, I missed him by an inch. And, boy, a couple of inches anyway. And he almost broke my back squeezing on me. I said, the next punch, I'm going to cream this guy. When I tried the next punch, it was about a half inch. I missed him. He fell on the floor. I never did hit him. And all the people started, boo, boo. And I said, get up, man. And the guy looked at me, and he did, and he fell again. I hadn't even touched him. I was so sad, man. Candy wrappers, everything thrown. And later on, we had a little after-fight dinner, and there he was sitting there. I was sitting there, and he came by. He said, you wanted me to get up, didn't you? I said, yes. He said, you wanted to kill me, didn't you? I said, yes. He said, that's why I didn't get up. And that fight has stuck in my mind more than any fight I had. The night I knocked the guy out with nothing, and it made good sense. I wanted to kill a guy, and the guy knew it. I'm not going to die in here.
Now, in 1973,
I made $600 for that fight, so you know what he must have made.
About six, probably.
No, probably about 300.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in 1973, you faced a man that you were going to have to hit to knock out, Joe Frazier, Kingston, Jamaica. How nervous were you going into that fight? Because you really hadn't been tested yet, and I'm sure that, Joe Frazier had to be, you seen him fight Ali, you seen him beat Ali. The guy was a great fighter. What was your mindset going into that fight, and what do you remember about that fight?
Well, that was the first time I truly had fear. You always have a little butterflies and nervous because you don't know the future about boxing. Boxing is really a scary sport anyway. And that's why I had so many knockouts. Man, I was afraid they were going to get me. It's like cornering a cat, But this time I said, man, Joe Frazier, I'd seen everybody. With Joe Frazier and Jerry Quarry was the most brutal thing I'd ever seen.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be in anything like that because all the guys knocked them down, but he'd get up and still beat them. The bigger they were, literally, the harder they fell with Joe Frazier.
Yeah.
And so I had to fight him. Sadler couldn't even give me a pump talk, those little pep talks in the ring. Don't worry about this guy. He can't crack an egg. This guy doesn't have a jab. We looked at each other about Joe Frazier, and it was like, don't even go there, man. But I was the number one contender. What could I say? I don't want it this time. I had to fight him. I'd seen him put his head on Muhammad Ali's chest, and like, I conquered you. You say you're going to get your head on someone's chest, but you don't literally do it. He did it. The man was like, so when I got in the ring with him, I was so nervous. He threw that famous left hook past my head, sounded like a pistol. Pow, pow. And I got so nervous, I said, I know what I got to do. And I started knocking him down one time after another. I remember after the second knockdown, I said, man, you're in trouble now. And so I had to get him down. I'm saying it to myself now. I said, this guy's going to get up and kill me. And I knocked him down. And after about 6 times being knocked down, they declared me the winner. I was afraid. That's how I felt in that boxing. Before that match, I kept walking from the dressing room up to the ring. We were in Kingston, Jamaica. I kept thinking, hopefully there'll be a storm. This ring is going to fall. We kept hoping something's going to happen. I'm not going in that ring. It's not going to happen. And it did happen.
Yeah, it sure did. Now, after doing that to Frazier, George, God, that's incredible. Nobody had obviously done that to Joe Frazier. He was undefeated when he fought you, and like Mike said, he had beat Muhammad Ali. Did you think, man, I think I'm pretty invincible after that fight?
For the first time, I looked at my fist and saw you know, you're real, George. I knew I could punch. Remember, strangely enough, Joe Frazier he was the champion of the world, but I had many more fights than him.
Yeah,
a lot of
you did.
People didn't realize that. He was like my 37th fight. He didn't have 30 boxing matches. Yeah. But I knew I had power, but when I saw him drop like that, I said, these are killing machines, these two fists of mine. No one can stand up to them. I'd hit guys, I said, you cover up, I could hit you on your gloves, and as hard as I could, the power would go through your gloves to your chin, to the top of your head, and knock you out. Nobody can stand up to this power. I remember fighting Ken Norton afterwards, Jose Roman first. I knocked these guys out, just almost knocked them through the ring, hit them with one punch. There's no one in this world can stand up to this power. I'm the most powerful thing that ever put on a pair of boxing gloves. I used to look at my fists and think, where did they come from?
Yeah, and then you run into Muhammad Ali and Zaire. Can you talk a little bit about the postponement of the fight and what it was like for you in Africa leading up to that fight?
Africa was not a good experience for me at all. We had gone to Africa. I'd committed to going to Africa because the government, some of the government officials had come over with Don King, of course, and they wanted us and told me why. We got a great country here. We want the world to know that we have tin, we have metal, we have gold, we have all this precious metal, and we got a lot to offer. This boxing match with George Foreman and Ali will put us on the map. And they sold me, and I decided, sure, I'll go. I'll take it. I had signed a contract to fight Muhammad anyway, and I could go anywhere. I was the champion. I could go anywhere I wanted. I chose Africa, believe me. So I got there, and they took us to some army barracks. And I looked over my head. I saw these big lizards and stuff crawling. I knew I was in another part of the world I was going to have to adjust to right quick. And it was far away. The people were actually kind to me if I could see a few of them, but eventually I moved to the Intercontinental Hotel and stayed there. But I was most irritated, and I was in the best shape that a fighter could ever be, those powerful punches working. And one day as I'm really putting it on the sparring partner, he got so nervous, he stuck his elbow up to protect himself, and the elbow hit me in the corner of my eye. And when it did, I felt blood coming down. I told my trainer, Dick Sal, I said, man, I've been cut. He said, no. I said, tell me I've been cut. And there I was, cut. So they postponed the match for 1 month because they weren't going to let us leave. That's for sure. 1 month. And so that they could have the fight. So remember, I had to heal, so I couldn't do any hard, strenuous workout, any sweat in the eye for 10 days. Then once I did, I couldn't get back to sparring because I couldn't let anyone knock the eye loose. And I didn't have stitches. We put butterflies over the eye. But I said, Muhammad Ali, I'm going to knock him out in 2 rounds. It doesn't matter anyway. Because I'd easily beaten Ken Norton. I'd knocked Joe Frazier out. What is Muhammad Ali going to be? He lost those guys, I figured. So I could fight him with 5 stitches in my eyes if I wanted to.
Yeah.
That was a horrible stay in Africa.
Yeah. The fight obviously is famous for the rope-a-dope, George. And what were you? But I'm curious, what were your thoughts early in the fight? I mean, you hit Muhammad Ali with some amazing punches. I mean, we're talking some brutal punches. Did you think that eventually he was going to just do what most of your opponent, almost all your opponents, did, fall down? I mean, what were you thinking like around round 4, round 5?
As I told you, these fists of mine, I had seen what those powerful punches could do. No one could stand up to those punches. And I knew that if I could get a guy, get him up to the corner, make him cover up, hit him anywhere, I was going to knock him out. And that's what I figured. The bell rang. He hit me a few times, but, I mean, they always do that. But I started wailing on that guy. I hit him with one punch after another. I said, now. And the bell rang. Went to the corner. I said, I'll get him the next round. And I really wailed on him pretty good. Pretty good. Round 2, I said, that's strange. And the third round came, I hit him in the side. And he kind of fell forward on me. And I wailed on this guy. I had him this time. Then when the bell started to ring this time, I said, can't believe he made it. He looked at me and said, I made it. I made it. Wow, made it. I went back to the corner thinking there's something different going on this side. I had beaten this guy up, given my best, and he was still on his feet. I was certain. I said, I'm just going to keep on at it. He can't take any more. Round after round started. I remember at one point when I hit him so hard, he fell on me, and I thought he's going to quit. He said, get all you got, George. That must have been about the 5th or 6th round. That's when I got nervous. I got scared. I said, because that was all I had for real. That was all. I mean, I had given this guy everything, but I never begged and run or hid and held on to anybody, and I was not going to start in Africa that night. I didn't back up. I didn't hide. I didn't cover up. I kept fighting. You know, the old saying, mama didn't raise a fool. Evidently my parents did. I kept punching on them. They call it the rope-a-dope. And you're actually talking to Mr. Dope right here. I'm the Dope.
So how did the loss to Ali affect you? I mean, you talked about how you were always nervous going into fights, but this is maybe the first time you weren't, or your couple defenses in this fight you weren't.
You know, and that's the only thing that would tell me, look, I'm tired of boxing. Going into the a day before the boxing match, going into the dressing room prior to the match, so nervous, and it's a crazy moment in your life, and you keep saying to yourself, I'm going to get some money, I'm getting out of this business. You hate that part, but in Africa, for the first time, I said, wow, I got it made. I'm not even worried. I'm not nervous. For the first time, I had it made. I could have done this every night feeling like that, and it was the only time I lost. So leaving Africa after that, first of all, I still, for years I couldn't understand how did that happen. I don't lose. As a professional, I don't lose. I couldn't figure that out. It was like I was covered with this mysterious power from outer space. And then all of a sudden it had left me. And I wondered I went back home for over a year and couldn't figure it out. How did he exist? Forget about Muhammad Ali, the fighter, but what happened to George Foreman, me, the guy who had the power? It was a hard thing to reckon with, so I had to start all over from the bottom.
Did you, George, have
mentally?
Yeah, sure. Makes sense. Did you have any hard feelings towards Muhammad Ali after that fight?
I always loved this guy. I met him first time I was in Miami. I was fighting a main event with a guy by the name of Levi Forte, my first 10-round match. Someone had told Muhammad I was at the gym, young George Foreman, and he came down. He'd driven up. I looked down the stairs. He had a pink Cadillac. And it was the rustiest, dirtiest old pink Cadillac I'd ever seen. He was in exile at this time. Exile. He came up the stairs making noise, and there were a couple of reporters doing interviews with me. When he came in, they cut the cameras off, the sound and everything. They didn't want to have anything to do with him. They were waiting for him to leave so they could do an interview. They stopped talking with me. That's the position he was in at that time. But he came to see me, and I stopped and chat with him. Remember, I'm only about 20 years old. He said, hey, George Foreman, I'm going to show you what you're going to have once you become champion of the world. Stay right here. Don't move. And I stayed, didn't move, up in the gym, had my workout clothes on anyway. He came back up with a briefcase. I said, man, he's going to show me $100,000, $10,000. He opened the briefcase. It was a telephone, portable telephone. He said, one day you're going to have this phone, one of these. And it didn't even work anyway. He just showing it around. And I thought, I want to laugh about the guy. But the idea he liked me. He wanted to show me something. I see him on the streets periodically. Nice-looking man. Crowds following him. George Foreman! And we play around and box. You're really on the verge. I actually say I love the guy. Mm-hmm. But then when it's time to box, you get psyched out. In Africa, we never did meet, so there wasn't any name calling like people thought. He psyched me out. We never saw each other. Mm-hmm. In the ring, when I got ready to stare him down before the boxing match, I stared guys down, man. I had a wicked stare because I meant it. It's like looking at the head of a deer that you're going to mount on your wall. That's the way I looked at guys. Muhammad Ali would not stare at me before that match. That was the only time we would meet in Africa. Only time. So as I was staring him down, it looked like someone had him prepared. He looked up. He said, George, you were just a kid in high school when I beat Sonny Liston. You don't belong in here. And I almost burst out laughing because someone had told him that was going to psych me out. And the reason I almost laughed because I wanted to say, man, I never spent a day in my life in high school. I didn't even go to high school. Someone told you wrong. But he had saved, how someone saved a moment to tell you something that's going to blow you away? I never had a day. I didn't go to high school. He got that wrong. But so, even at that little naughty moment, I almost laughed and bust out laughing. So after the fight, he didn't have anything to do with me. So, of course, I started to hate the guy, taking my title away from him. I did. I hated him. I said, I'm going to get back in shape, and I'm going to kill him. My whole thing was like, I'm going to get back in shape, I'm going to kill that Muhammad Ali.
And that brings us to something that I really haven't heard you talk much about before, but after the Ali loss, who came up with the idea for fighting 5 men in Toronto and why? And can you talk to us a little bit about that night?
My friend Henry Winston and we would communicate all the time. Henry Winston was the guy who told Doc Brodus, George should be a professional. And we could put together a group. We could put up the money, and he can fight professional and be champion of the world like Floyd Patterson, like Muhammad Ali and all these guys. He can do this. But Henry Winston became my friend again after I lost Ali. And I told him, I said, man, I'm thinking about showing the world how strong I was because I was robbed over there. Somebody did things to me in Africa. I said, what if I get together and get 5 guys and fight them in one night? And we talked about it, and finally we presented it to some people, and Don King got in the picture and said, I can put it on television. Mm-hmm. ABC bought the idea. Mm-hmm. And, of course, we picked 5 opponents, and that was it. I just wanted to show the world that I was that tough. Nobody could beat me. To try to recover from the slaughter of my ego by fighting those 5 guys. And that's an idea, and it came about quickly. I did it. It's supposed to have been an exhibition. That's about all you could do it. We picked Canada because they're the promoters. They were anxious to do it.
Yeah, like a year later, George, man, you fought Ron Lyle, and I was watching that fight. You talk about a Pier 6 brawl. Tell us a little bit about that fight. I mean, obviously anybody who knows boxing remembers that fight because it was such a give and take. You both hit the canvas. I mean, was that were you thinking in your mind, I got to kill this guy before he kills me, or what do you remember from that one?
What I remember most about that fight is Ron Lyle. I just wanted to get the top fighter so I could get that title shot again. Promoters presented me with Ron Lyle. I said, he punches, but he's just one of those guys who's been built up. He's not all that. That's what I kept saying. So then I'm in the ring to show off my skill and all of that. I want to be champ of the world again. This guy hit me, and out of nowhere, I was on the canvas. It didn't hurt. If it truly had hurt me, I wouldn't have gotten up, but it didn't hurt. It was like, what am I doing on the floor? Then every excuse started to come to my mind. Somebody put something in my water. The ropes were loose. I had all these excuses. I said, nobody, especially the media types, they're not going to believe me this time. I got to get up. I got up, and after a while, I was down on the canvas again. My bottom teeth had gone even through my bottom lip. That's how hard he hit me. Bleeding, I'm dizzy. I said, but what am I going to tell them now? I said, you know what? It would be easier for me to die tonight than to come up with an excuse of why I lost. I said, I'm just going to keep getting up. I'm going to get up. I'm going to get up because I can't come up with an excuse. And I think that Ron Lyle got the best of me so much, but Mike kept getting up. He decided, you know what, this guy's crazy. He want to die. He fainted. He beat me so bad that he fainted himself. I don't see any great punch I hit him with. It's just that he couldn't take all of that. This guy is not going to give up. And I never want to be in that position again.
Yeah, and then talk to us a little bit about your first retirement. You lost to Jimmy Young, and what happened to you, the experience you had after that fight.
Well, in St. Juan, Puerto Rico, I'm number one contender. I'm back on top. And I think it was the WBC had declared that if Muhammad Ali didn't sign to fight me, they were going to declare the winner of the Jimmy Young George Foreman fight their new champion. So we fought, and I not only wanted to win the fight, I wanted to go 12 rounds so people could stop saying he doesn't have stamina. So we went to 12 rounds. Jimmy Young even clipped me one time, but it was no big thing. I got up, he was still afraid, and I went back in the dressing room. I heard from Gil Clancy the other day that they cut the air conditioner off in the building that night. I thought the air conditioners were broke, but they were trying to get the people hot so they could sell more beer. And it was so hot, I just couldn't take it. I went to the dressing room. I tried to walk and cool off, and I couldn't. And as I was trying to cool myself down after a disappointing loss, but even the loss didn't bother me. It was just so hot, I could hardly breathe. And then I'm walking back and forth and thinking, oh, you George Foreman, you still got money, you're wealthy, you got your big contract with to do commentary and movies. You could go home right now. Who cares about this boxing match? You go home and retire and die. And for the next few moments, I started fighting with the fact that I was about to die in a stupid, dirty dressing room, and I had all these homes all over the country. And I fought, and I lost the battle. I looked around, I heard a voice say, you believe in God, why are you scared to die? And I was afraid. And I tried to make a deal. I said, I'm still George Foreman. I got money. I can give money to charity and for cancer. And I heard a voice within me say, I don't want your money. I want you. And I started crying. I started walking and running. Everybody's looking at me in the dressing room. I didn't want to tell them because I know they were going to think, oh, he's sad that he lost a boxing match. I didn't care about a boxing match. I wanted to live. But the next thing I know, I was sitting up there fighting, and I looked, and I realized I was about to die, and I said, and I knew it was God knocking on my door. I said, God, I believe in you, but not enough. Before I could say anything, my legs curled up on me, and I was gone. And I remember looking in the dressing room saying, I told everybody, hey, y'all, I'm fixing it. Before I could say another word, I was dead. Over my head, under my feet, I was in a dump yard of nothing. There was no more of me, and that was the end of me, a horrible smell that goes along with death, and I was in that horrible smell. And I looked around, and I got mad because I knew I was dead, and I got mad. I said, I don't care if this is death. I still believe there's a God. When I said that, like a gigantic hand reached in and pulled me out, I was alive again in the dressing room. And I looked, evidently they laid me on a table. I said, hey, I'm dying, but tell everybody I'm dying for God. And I said that. I looked on my hand, there was blood. On my forehead, there was blood. I started screaming that Jesus Christ was coming alive in me. I'm telling you real fast. Jesus Christ is coming alive in me. Everybody looked at me crying, sad. I saw blood on my forehead. I said, move your hand, Dr. West, because the thorns on his head are making him bleed. They really started looking at me then, boy. It's like, uh-oh. But I fought 8 men. I fought 8 men that night to get in the shower, and there wasn't any hot water there. And I got in the shower and started screaming words I never screamed before, like, I'm clean, hallelujah, born again. Everybody got scared then. I said, I got to go tell the world. They said, you don't have any clothes on, George. I remember that. They fought me down, held me down to a dressing room table, and next thing I know, I was in an ambulance there, strapped me down and took me to the hospital. And my life has been changed since then. I've never been the same man again. For 10 years, I'd never even made a fist again. I stopped boxing. I dedicated my life to being an evangelist with the Church of the Lord Jesus Christ in Houston. I traveled the world as an evangelist. And I never would have gone back into boxing, but I had this fantastic phenomenon occur in my life. I got broke.
Yeah, great motivator.
That'll do it.
So
that'll do it. And I wish believe me, I wish I had been a golfer. I never would have returned to boxing. But all I knew was boxing, and I started working. I was a preacher. It was the hardest thing with me was trying to justify after all of that preaching for 10 years, not even a violence and everything, was to get back into the room. And that was a hard thing to do, but I prayed. I even told God, look, I wish, even if I had been a cashier, I had spent 2 years in college. You know how, and I tell kids all the time, get yourself a great education because money is a fleeting thing. I mean, you can have wealth in one day and the next day like you don't have anything. A good education and a good profession or a good union will hold you.
Yeah.
I had none.
Yeah.
And so I went
George,
back to boxing.
Yeah. Was there a time during your comeback when you realized, man, I mean, I don't know. I can't remember if it was your goal to win the heavyweight championship again, or was there a particular fight where you started to really believe, look, I might be older than these guys, but I can do this. I can win the title again.
Well, it goes back to when Dick Sadler, all these guys, some of the guys who owned the New York Jets and a few other wealthy guys, they said, we put together this yard, we will pay you so much money per week, pay your salary, you don't have to pay for anything, and we're just going to take part of your purse, and you can just fight. I wrestled with that. I just couldn't do it because I wanted to be in boxing if I wanted to, and if I wanted to get out, I wanted that privilege. Sadler told me, he said, George, I don't have any money to give you, but I can teach you how to box, and you can make your own money. I'm telling you that because when I came back to boxing, I was in a little church in Georgia, and the guy had me down for about a week. He said, if you come and spend about 3 days, we're going to give you some money because I'd opened a youth center for kids, and it took money to run the thing. He said, he'll make a donation. But I didn't know that after I spent a week there, he asked the people, now we're going to give George money. And he put a little offering pan there, and the people gave money. He counted the money. He said, we can do better than this. George Foreman is helping these kids. I've never felt so embarrassed in my life. Here I am, had been champion of the world, had swimming pools, Rolls Royce, and now I'm asking these people who don't have any money for money. And I stood there on that podium, and I said, I'll never ask anyone for money again. I'm going to be heavyweight champion of the world again. That's how I'm going to get money. I never said I'm going back to boxing. I said I'm going to be heavyweight champion of the world. Mm. And when you have integrity, that's what you stick to. So I came back not to, of course I wanted money, but I said I was coming back to be heavyweight champion of the world. I knew how to box. I knew boxing. I knew how to fight. And Sadler had taught me to promote by hanging up posters, stopping at bars, speaking on television. He made me do those things in the beginning, but then I brought him alive for myself the second time around. I knew the profession of boxing.
Yeah, and your first high-profile fight was a pay-per-view fight against Jerry Cooney. Cooney seemed to hurt you early in the fight. Can you talk to us a little bit about fighting Cooney, who was a big puncher like yourself?
And the one thing that frightened me because of Ron Lyle, I knew what punches could do. Mm-hmm. So I'm back on the scene. I got my first fight. It was going to be for $1 million payday. Remember, I came back. First couple of fights were like $1,500, $5,000. I couldn't, but I kept fighting. But I knew that eventually I would inherit the same thing I had before. When I'm in the ring with Cooney, and he hit me with that left hook, and I thought he was just a fake fighter like I did Ron Lyle all those years back. Just built up, and I felt my knees quiver a little bit. I said, oh, no, not again. Man, I kept coming, and I knocked him down. I knew I couldn't play around and box this guy. I had to go for a knockout. But once that fight was over, I had won, and most importantly, I had some money in the bank for a change. Yeah. I was back on the scene.
Yeah. You fought Holyfield too, George, and that was after that, obviously, and that was really a good fight. Well, tell us a little bit about that night when you fought Holyfield. That was you gave him hell. You came up short, but it was a very good boxing match.
Yeah, and for the first time, I realized that a generation beyond that I had existed in truly had some tough fighters. I mean, this guy took a good shot. Evander Holyfield, he took a good shot, and you can believe if you got him, he didn't intend to just wilt like some of the other guys in the past. He was going to fight for what he had. Evidently, he was from that school of, you're not going to take what I have. You got to fight me for it. And I fought him for it. Not going in with the idea that I was going to go 12 rounds. And a couple of times I had him with some good shots too, but I played around. Next thing you know, I'm in with a guy who knows how to go 12 rounds. They had a good corner, and I consider that really a good match too. Probably one of the best matches I'd ever been in. As far as tit for tat from this guy. The guy, I hit him with some good shots, and most guys would have fallen. Had him knocked him up against the rope, and you know what he did? Came back and hit me 50 times. Yeah, I remember one round he hit me. He had been all night trying to counter and hit me with that right hand that he had knocked Buster Douglas out with. Yeah, he countered me and hit me with that right hand, and I looked him in the eye and said, "Well, you did it. Now it's done. What?" And I guess he said, "My goodness, what have I run into too?" I said, "Let the fight begin." And then when I did have him, I could have gone crazy. Started holding me in the last round, which was smart. And I realized that in my life, one of the true tough men I ever faced in the ring was Evander Holyfield. Yeah. I lost the fight on points, but I made a good point for athletes that there's no death sentence with being 40, 45, and all that.
Yeah, for anybody that thought your comeback was a joke, I think after that fight, I don't think anybody could not take you seriously anymore. And 3 years later, you knock out Michael Moorer, you become a 2-time heavyweight champion. Was that the greatest night of your career?
Oh, boy, that was a wonderful moment in my life to get that title. I remember I've been a preacher all those years, and I didn't play religion in the ring. And I said a prayer at home. My mom called me for the first time all those years. She never watched me box, never paid any attention to my career, didn't want to talk about it. She told me that night, that day before the fight, she said, "George, son," call me son now. She said, "I think you got this one, son." I said, "Really?" She said, "Yep, son, I think you got it." Never said anything to me like that. So I go into the ring, although I'm 45 years old, almost 46, I'm feeling like a little teenager. My mom called me and told me I could do it. So that's true. And so when I knocked him down, I said, "God, I never play this religious stuff, but if this time if I win, I'm going to get on my knees and say a little thank you, Jesus." And I won the boxing match. I got down on my knees and thank God right there for doing this thing. I never did that before nor after. That's how magnificent I felt. Wonderful I felt that night. But winning the gold medal in Mexico City as a teenager, nothing has come close to that moment.
Yeah. You retired a few years later, George, for good. I think your record was 76-5 with 68 knockouts. What made you finally say, "That's it, I'm done"?
I never intended to stop. It was a conspiracy between my wife and my attorney, who they kept me busy. I got into the advertising business, developing the George Foreman grill and all those things. I kept doing all these speaking engagements. And my wife never complained. I wondered what's sort of strange. The next thing you know, you look up and 2 years have gone by and I haven't fought. I said, you know what? I don't think I'm going to box anymore. It was a trick. You know, one of those things I never intended to retire. I just didn't box anymore.
I see.
Yeah, and after you retired, I mean, what led you into commentating for HBO, and what was your most memorable moment while doing that?
Well, I really did the HBO thing because I'd lost to Evander Holyfield, and I kept saying, I'm publicity-minded. How can I keep my name in the light of boxing so I can get another chance? I got the offer from HBO to work for them. I said, now I'll be on television all the time. So for 13 years, I did that. 13 years I put off my life, and without having unless I had a boxing match, a guarantee that my Saturdays, Fridays, and Saturdays, they didn't belong to me anymore. That HBO could call me up at any time. For 13 years. So finally I let that go because I needed the freedom of having a Saturday and a Friday and a Saturday.
That's pretty cool. So what about nowadays, George? Your life, you said it's great. Tell us what you do to keep yourself busy. I know you're 68 years old, which blows my mind because actually I saw you training to fight Muhammad Ali in Pleasanton at the fairgrounds. I was in the crowd that day. I was a teenager. I watched you sparring. You knocked George Scrap Iron Johnson, I think his name was, out while you were sparring and with him, and you were working on the heavy bag. Never seen anything like that. But nowadays, George, how do you keep yourself busy? Are you still on the edge of the boxing world? You obviously keep track of things. What do you do? What's your day like these days?
No, I still like watching boxing, of course, and every chance I get an opportunity to see a good fight on the big networks, I'll watch them. But as a rule, I'm a full-time minister. I never left my ministry. Wednesday, Saturdays, and Sundays, I'm in church, Sunday school service in the morning on Sunday. I travel around the world trying to talk. People say, you can come here and motivate us. And I do motivational speaking, and that's what they call it. But I run my mouth anyway. I have 14 grandkids. I have 3 great-grandkids. So I always got something going on in the family. I have 10 kids, of course. My last one just started, the last child we had, Pepperdine University in Malibu. So I have an excuse to travel to California. I do a television show where we travel with few Henry Winkler, William Shatner, Terry Bradshaw, and another young man. We travel all over the country, showing the whole world that it's never too late to do some of the things that you should have done when you were early. You work all your life. I've never taken a month off in my life, even after I left boxing with the ministry and the youth center. But I did it twice now, 2 years. I've gone around the world. So I keep myself pretty busy. And my wife, as long as I do that, she doesn't argue with me and tell me to take out the trash. I'm a celebrity, as long as I stay busy.
All right, now you say you watch boxing. A final question, and we'll let you go. What do you think of Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua and overall the heavyweight division today?
Oh, I think they're great fighters. Wilder and Joshua, Anthony Joshua, that was about some of the 2 of the best fighters of all time, not just today, but these are great big old giants. They can hit, and it would take a guy to have at least 50 fights under his belt if he's not a giant guy to be able to beat him, and nobody seemed to have that much experience when they fight them. You'd have to have at least 40 fights to know boxing if you're not a giant to beat a giant. You know, boxing was created to beat giants anyway. But they are the cream of the crop. I would pay to see them fight. I like what they do. Tough. And so the heavyweight division is in good shape as long as they are around.
All right, George. John, any final questions or comments?
Well, now I have to ask George, when they fight, Wilder and Joshua, who do you think will win, George?
I think that Wilder has the edge as far as I'm concerned because he's reckless. And, you know, you can be Anthony Joshua is such a good fighter, but he's polished. I've never appreciated polished fighters. I mean, because they have to stay. I mean, this Deontay Wilder will hit you with a haymaker. I mean, it just goes beyond being defended from him. So I give him the edge in my mind.
Interesting. Okay.
All right,
just a
George.
Pleasure talking.
Yeah, I mean, it was great having you on the show. We'd love to have you back sometime. Maybe before Wilder and Joshua fight, we'll have you on. We can talk about it a little bit.
Boy, well, I love that. Stay in touch, guys.
All right. Thanks a lot, George.
Yeah, Bye-bye. We're going to have you on the Ringside Boxing Show, too, George. So take care.
Thanks, George.
Bye-bye.
All right, guys. I want to remind everybody that you just heard George Foreman on the Legends of Boxing Show. Our guests in the future, we will have tomorrow night around 9 o'clock Eastern, former WBA heavyweight champion Mike Weaver. The evening after that at 9 o'clock, we'll have former WBC heavyweight champion Pinklin Thomas. The night after that, we'll have former WBO heavyweight champion Michael Bent on the show, and we have a lot of other big things planned. I want you to make sure you go to thegruelingtruth.net so you can check out all of that content. You can go to the iTunes store and download the app for The Grueling Truth so you can hear all of our podcasts. John, any final comments?
Oh, that was just a pleasure talking to George, wasn't it, Mike? I mean, an old fart like me that's pushing 60, I mean, it was just phenomenal remembering and listening and him reminiscing about those days. Obviously, a guy like me is going to say, boy, those were the days, but listening to George and his attitude, and I was sitting here thinking, boy, he's had a wonderful life, and in a lot of ways he has, you know, pretty phenomenal stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it was an honor. I mean, because growing up, I mean, Big George Foreman was one of my heroes, and even when I got older, you know, 15, 20 years later, he's the heavyweight champion again. So the thing that's impressive to me is within 3 years, you're winning an Olympic gold medal. And then you come back after 10 years off and become the heavyweight champion when you're 45 years old. I think that in sports, people always talk about records, but I don't think anybody is ever going to duplicate those 2 feats that Big George Foreman did.
Yeah, and I know you remember this, Mike. That fight against Michael Moorer. I mean, he had to go through hell to win that title. Michael Moorer was tattooing him with shots. He was hitting him with punches that would have knocked him out.
Yeah, he was down like 8 rounds to 1 going into the 10th round.
Right. That's right. A lot of people forget that. And George, he caught him. I remember Teddy Atlas saying, be careful, you know, he's coming for you. And George caught him with the right hand, and down went Moorer. But, I mean, he had to take some wicked shots. His face was all puffed up. I mean, George had a big heart in there. And
I mean, look at his fight with Holyfield. His fight with Alex Stewart. I mean, I thought his career was done after the Alex Stewart fight.
Yeah, his face was all blown up. I remember that well. Yeah.
And then, of course, I mean, I don't think he ever lost to Shannon Briggs either. So.
Well, I didn't mention Shannon Briggs' name because I didn't want to put him in the same with this show with Big George because that's like a plea.
Exactly, but there's no way he lost that fight. So
yeah, I know. That's boxing. Stupid. It was a bad decision, but you know, just fantastic, and I'm so glad that we got him here on the Legends of Boxing. What a thrill!
All right. Well, guys, make sure you check us out on thegruelingtruth.net. Click the banner from mybookie.ag if you want to bet the fights this weekend. We got Billy Joe Saunders against David Lemieux. Got a good PBC card Friday night, so if you want to bet the fights, go to thegruelingtruth.net. Click on mybookie.ag. They'll take care of you. And from personal experience, if you win there's no problem getting your money. You have it within 48 hours, which I think they pretty much guarantee. Best bookie site on the internet that I have seen. So make sure you check out mybookie.ag. So for Big George Foreman, John Raspanti, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.